Good afternoon, members, everyone. We're in our meeting on Wednesday, 13th of December, Learning and Skills Scrutiny Committee. First item on the agenda is apologies. I've had a conversation with Councillor Gareth, who is trying his best to come in today, so may join us, but apologies. He sends his apologies if he doesn't make it. Anything else, Kath?
We've apologies from Emma Palmer, CEO, Jane Thomas, Section 151 Officer, and Lynette Lovell, Director of Education and Children's Services, will be joining us hopefully a bit later.
Okay. Members, are you aware of any others? No. If not, we'll move on to item 2 on your agenda, which is disclosures of interest. Members, you've had the agenda circulated on the disclosures. And similarly, at item 3, declarations of party whip. No, okay, just judging on your silence. We have a set of minutes, the minutes of the 17th of October 23. I'm assuming as they've been circulated, everybody's had a chance to have a look at them. Anybody happy to propose them as an accurate record of a previous meeting?
Yeah, happy to propose, Gwynfor.
Thank you, Lucy. And the seconder? Yep, thank you, Glenn. Assuming you're all in favour. Has anybody got any queries in relation to those minutes or anything anybody would like to raise at this point? No, thank you very much. That takes us to item 5, election of member to the Public Service Board Scrutiny Committee. Members, we had a quick discussion in our pre-meet the other day in relation to this. We've been advised due to the recent 3 council by-elections, there will be a recalculation on the political membership of this committee. So we're advised at this point to carry it over until we know what the ramifications of that committee membership means or what. So anybody got any comments in relation to that, or is happy to move on? Okay, that takes us to item 6 on the agenda, the West. Welsh in Education Strategic, it's a good job it's abbreviated. Welsh in Education Strategic Plan. It's the first year evaluation report, and also there's feedback report within it from Welsh Government. It's pages 17 to 48 in your agenda pack, and I believe we've got Eirig and Bethan with us. I haven't noticed Bethan in the meeting yet, but Councillor Pete, is there anything you'd like to say prior to Eirig or Bethan taking us through the report?
Can I just come in, sorry, quickly?
Go on,
Bethan,
Eirig.
sorry, sorry, Councillor Pete. Bethan is an attendee at the meeting, so at the moment can't speak. Would it be possible for
She's in the meeting, Eirig.
She's now in. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Pete.
No.
That's fine, Eirig. This is the first full year report on the WESP. It was adopted by officers initially during the PERDA period during the elections in 2022. And I would again pay tribute to my predecessor in the role and the previous cabinet in terms of actually undertaking the work to get this very significant and very important document through all of the processes, including scrutiny, and I recall scrutinising it myself. The document you have in front of you is the first year report. It's a very detailed document, and I will defer to officers Eirig and Bethan to take you through it in some detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pete. Eirig, I'm happy to follow your direction on this. I know some members have, you've got a feeling of some of them, the questions which you'll take from our pre-meet, but yeah, no, I'm happy to take your lead on this, Eirig, and follow you through with it.
Diolch yn fawr, Chair. Just to start off really with an introduction to the paper. This is the report, or the first year report of our progress in addressing the Council's Welsh in Education strategic plan. It is the first year of 10. So, you know, it's a very long plan that we have and lots of work to do during that time. But this is an annual collection of data and information for Welsh Government on how we've addressed our priorities over the first year. The report is actually written in July 2023. The feedback we had from Welsh Government actually was received on the 20th of November. And hence why we're now bringing this to the Scrutiny Committee, even though it's 5 months after it was actually published, is we have only recently received that review from Welsh Government as to the progress of what we've done. And they also will be meeting with us next week. Myself and Bethan will be meeting with Welsh Government officials to discuss the report and the feedback that we received from Welsh Government and to see the next steps that we'll be putting in place in terms of that. The report format itself is very much one that's designed by Welsh Government. It's to ensure consistency across all local authorities. So in terms of how the how it is presented and the format of it, that was something that is outside of our control. However, I am going to now apologise to the Scrutiny Committee. The original document that was created for Welsh Government was actually the majority of which was in Welsh. When we came to present this and share this with Scrutiny Committee, I realised that it actually needed to be translated. Okay, we were very aware that translation unit is under significant pressure now, so I took it upon myself to translate the document. I'm very aware, having read back through this, that sometimes when I have been reading things through that, I've interpreted them one way, and there are a few errors within that, and I can only apologise for not taking more time and care over that. But I think it's important that everybody knows that I did the translation there to ensure that everybody understood what was in that. I realise there are a few little points in there that hadn't been translated, but happy to go through those at that time. The Welsh Government feedback has been on content with the progress that we have made. We are in line with most of the areas that we were expecting to be within the first year. There are some areas that we need to focus on and improve on, especially things like data and using that data then into to back up the evaluations that we have there. We've already identified these things ourselves, so it was pleasing when Welsh Government came back and said these are the areas that they'd like to discuss with us, because we are already working on those. And I'm sure as we go through the report, there will be questions from Scrutiny about some of the data that's there and possibly where we are going to collect that data next. I think the easiest way to work through the report is to take each of the sections one by one. And we will be able to take questions for each one of those, and either myself or Bethan or any other officers that are here who wish to contribute may well do that as well during that time. Is that okay with you, Councillor Gwynfor?
Yeah, no, that's let's go through the outcomes stage by stage.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. So the first section was all about increasing the number of nursery children and 3-year-olds who receive their education through the medium of Welsh. So we're happy to take questions as we go through there, rather than have an overview, and then people can ask questions on each of the sections.
You're the only one with a question at the moment, Eric.
Aye.
Okay, I've got Councillor Allard indicating.
Thought about chip in, get in there early. I know this is the first year of this particular WESP, but it's not the first WESP that's been produced. And oh yeah, no, just for clarity as well, who's is it Councillor Peter as responsible cabinet member for the Welsh language? I'm not, just to double check. Of Pete's frozen. Is it, who's got the responsibility for the Welsh language in the cabinet? It was you for a moment, wasn't it?
I think it's Councillor Sandra Davids. Councillor.
What's it, Sandra? Okay.
Yeah.
Diolch, David. No, I was just wondering, because I assume there's a certain amount of work Sandra's put into this as well, I'm guessing. But sorry, back to the outcome one. I got difficulty here to understand whether this is an improvement on the previous year, if the trend's going in the right direction. These are sort of standalone figures without any context around them, just the opening data there, really. And it's the same through the document. I noticed Welsh Government have asked for extra data. You've supplied extra data on some of the topics. Yeah. It'd be great if we could see your responses to Welsh Government as well.
Yeah, and the reason for that, Councillor, is because in the actual WESP document itself, it has all the pre-data which has actually led up to us suggesting what this would be the next stages. So that is already held by Welsh Government and by us. So when we were writing it, we didn't go back and reference that because it was already in that document. So yeah, apologies from us for that, but we're quite happy to share where we are in terms of, say, the nursery places the previous year. So and also the ones that we are now. So there's been an improvement in the Welsh this year to 36.4%. I was having Welsh then. This is continued now into 2023, where again we are at 36.4% in July 2023. And the rates of transfers from pupils coming from Cylchmaithrin into schools has actually improved as well. So it was 80% in 2021-22. That has now increased to 87.5% in 2022-23. So there is a slight improvement in those areas there, in the percentage of pupils that are starting Welsh medium education.
Okay, but in a way, I'd like to see the numbers as well.
Yeah.
Because that's what's important, really, is a number. You know, the class size might be fluctuating a bit, and it's that linkage between all these different outcomes as you go through down to outcome. I think it's 4 or 5, where you the child progress through the schools, and you know, to see the linkage, in a way, you'd want to see the numbers at this early stage being at least double of those possible Welsh speakers that are currently year 7. So it's a trends I'm particularly interested, and I don't get that out of this data. Okay, I'm at fault. Perhaps Learning and Skills could also send out the original WESP plan at the same time, so we could make those comparisons.
Yeah, we're happy to do that because it was part of the discussions that happened previously when we brought the WESP initially into to scrutiny.
Yeah, sorry, I should have dug it out from somewhere, but
no, that's quite all right. Okay. This is things we're learning from this as well, isn't it? Next time we will make sure that the report is much more tailored towards skills and scrutiny. We thought that it was more of an update from where we were rather than there. So that's why we're willing to apologise to this as well. Yeah, I don't have all the figures of each of the year groups we have there to hand at the moment. So I couldn't tell you. I could say where we were previously in 2021-22 and where we are in 2022-23, because obviously you've got those to hand at this time. And that's what I could say.
Yeah, you're right. It's the lessons to be learned on all sides in future. But yeah, if we could share some detail at some point, that'd be great. Councillor Pete.
I was just going to offer officers to look at this data and put together a time sequence, because obviously we're going to be reporting to you what the Welsh Government asked for, because it's obviously a statutory document. But sitting alongside it, now that we've got established metrics, we can start to establish that time series and develop a dashboard document that can be shared, that can sit alongside this when we report it to you next year, so that you can see progression over time alongside the snapshot of where we've gone and where we've improved in that particular year.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pete. Kath has put in, we've now got Eilis with us, Prananda Eilis. Members, the translation is on your toolbar on the bottom, and select English. So members, anybody wishing to speak through the medium of Welsh, please do so. I've got Sarah indicating next. Sarah, please.
Hi all. It was just a quick question. On page 21 of the report, it talks about, it's at the top, outcome 1.1. The LA has funded a Mudiad Maithrin language support officer to support the Welsh language skills of practitioners in 3+ settings. I just wondered at what cost and how long is that person in post for, given that Mudiad Maithrin are a voluntary organisation?
You okay with that, Eric?
I'm just trying to find it on there.
Can I add to Sarah's question, really? What is the outcomes you hope to achieve by that employment as well?
Sarah, can you tell me which page it was on again, please? Just so I can just check it.
1.1, wasn't it?
Yeah, 1.1, top of page 21, big page 21. It's the last line in that box, 1.1.
Eric, top of page 4 in the actual report.
Thank you. Maithrin Language Support Officer. I was not aware of that because it's not part of our trochi that's in there. Oh, Bethan, are you able to come in?
I think this was something that perhaps Sharon's team organised. I don't think it was, they didn't support that person full time. It was temporary for specific support for specific settings, I think.
So we're not currently funding that. I didn't think
not
so.
Not a full-time post, no, not a full-time post.
Because it's not part of our grant funding that we're supporting with Welsh Government, which is our immersion. So that's why it took me a little bit by surprise. So, no, but we'll have to find some details on that for you.
The outcomes of that officer's work then, really?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Happy for that to be forwarded on. Councillor Bryn, Prananda.
Helo, Smai. O'n i'n gweld bod yn rhan o'r cysga, mae yna bwriad I datblygu cylch Maithrin yn ardaloedd ar-ddyn ffwrdd crosses Llandysiliad Carreg Hofer, ond does na ddim adrodd yn yr adroddiad cynnydd ydych chi rhoi ger y bron i'n sôn am datblygiad yn yr ardal yn ydych chi...
Can I steal your thunder, Bryn? Is everybody picking up translation there?
No.
Eilis has dropped off the call, Chair.
All right, okay.
Okay,
Brave new world, isn't it? Brave new world. Eilis has lost connectivity at this present moment in time, Bryn.
Yeah, well, in order to get on, I note in the West there's an intention to develop Cylchad Maithrin in the Carreg Hofer Arddlin Four Crosses Llandysiliad area, but there was no reference to that in your progress report. So I was just wondering if there's an update on the situation in that.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, it wasn't one of the areas that we had designated, because obviously the West bit itself, it covers the 10 years. That's not one of the ones that we have prioritised at this time. What we'd looked at this year was the Heion Y area, to try to find areas there that we can improve on that, because that's an area that doesn't have any Welsh medium provision at all. So that's why that one was prioritised on that one. It will be in the future an area that we focus on.
How far in the future? Because the improvement in the provision, which will come later on to in Ysgol Llanfyllin, etc., depends on improved numbers, doesn't it? And that it's
Yeah.
areas like that which are essential.
And there are already provision within that cluster as well, within Welsh Medium. So we are actually ensuring that those are at capacity.
So there is provision in that area already, you're saying?
In the Llanfellin area, yes.
Oh yeah, but not in the Ardlyn Carreg over Four Crosses
No,
area.
and that's why it's been identified as an area to improve over the course of the 10-year period of the Cysga, the WESP.
Okay, and do you have an idea of when along the timeline that might start happening?
I can't tell you exactly, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand Bryn's frustration there, really. So I think there's somewhere along the line Scrutiny needs to have a recommendation on pace there. It would be quite frustrating to think that it could be 10 years down the line, isn't it? Understand your limitations, Eric, but you can understand our desire as well. Councillor Pate.
Yeah, the catchment review has thrown up a number of possibilities in that area as to how we could move forward. But in fairness to officers, at the moment they have prioritised in the first year the catchments or partial catchments in the east and south of the county where there is actually no Welsh medium provision at all, in order to try to get some equitability. The Ardlyn area does have opportunities within a reasonable driving distance, whereas if you're down in Crickhowell, you've got to go out of county to get anything. And if you're in the Hay catchment, you're looking at a drive across to Brecon before you can gain access to any Welsh medium provision. So it's been very much about ensuring that there is equitability across all of our catchments as the highest priority, and then moving on to enhancing the provision in catchments where Welsh medium is already available, excepting, of course, if an opportunity arises and there is a group approaching us looking to actually proactively develop, then obviously officer time will be spent looking into that, in just the same way that the proposal that came out of Broker accelerated the plans for looking at that high school in terms of its West commitment and timeline.
I'm going to bring Councillor Lucy in here because we're speaking about an area which she has great knowledge on. Councillor Lewis.
Sorry, Chair. Also, sorry, for Bethan has got the date within the action plan.
Sorry,
Okay.
I've just had a little look in the action plan and it's down for July 27 in the action plan.
July 27. It's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. That's a good information to receive. Sorry, Alan, I'll bring Lucy in first.
Yeah, thanks, Gwynfor. It was only just to say that as far as I'm aware, there's still a TRV operating in Llandriniaeth. So that's a good starting point.
Okay, thanks, Lucy. Councillor Allen.
Just before Bethan said July 27, what's happening in July 27?
That's when it's in the action plan to start the work and working
to start the
with
work, or not actually opening a.
That's when we would start in that area, yes.
To start
because it's fine. Yeah,
potentially develop something rather than actually having a provision
yes.
available.
Yeah, because we've got 5 areas in the west which have been identified which need to improve our provision for early years. So I'm just scanning through there now to find out which ones they have. Caernwye, Crickhowell, Prestine, Llanidloes, and then the north border area of Ardlyn, Four Crosses, Llandyssilio. So we've identified to work with one of those areas each year within the first 5 years.
Okay. Councillor Roberts was talking, when you look at a small scale map, you know, a whole map of powers, and you put some dots on to show where the provision is, it looks sort of fairly consistent and widespread. But when you focus in on different areas, it is very, very patchy. And I know in my part of the world there was a TAV or a Kilch at one time, but it has disappeared. And there's nothing for 10 miles at least. When there are really limited hours of accessibility, it's just impossible for parents to use those. So, you know, whether it's 20 miles or 10 miles, it's or where the dots are on that map, there's still really in the equality of provision is really sketchy on all parts of Powys, and not just focused on those particular 7 areas you mentioned. Gilch and stuff TV depends on really does depend on volunteers a lot, doesn't it? And the hoops they have to jump through sometimes makes it almost impossible. I know there's a little small group set up with within very local to myself now, but they keep their hours fairly short, so they don't have to register with anybody. You know, there are disincentives built into the system that stop development of potential new kilks and TAV from developing across the county. I don't know whether this can be addressed in any way.
That's kind of going into some of the work that I do with the early years settings as well. You know, we're very aware of the size of settings. I came to a scrutiny meeting back in October where we talked about early years. I said the problems going forward are, you know, very small settings, you know, when funding will be transferred to per pupil funding, that will be very difficult for some of our settings to cope with and to be financially viable. But, you know, we're very committed to ensuring that there is Welsh medium across or accessible within each of our catchments. And the reasons why we've chosen the catchment of Hay on Wye to start with is because we know there is no provision at all within that cluster. And hence why we've had to prioritise the areas of working through those. That's not, and that's just difficulty that you have is, yeah, we'd like to try to move on everything at pace, but the difficulty you've got is we're going to have to build capacity within these areas as well. It's going to be a challenge, we understand. And hence why we're working with Mudiad and Maithrin to establish these, to get their support, ensure we're using their systems as well to, you know, support the members of staff there as well, because, you know, we're very aware that you're going to try and build from within those areas as well. Welsh is not at its strongest areas within Powys, within those areas. So we've got to try and ensure we support those staff to provide that quality as well.
And the population within those settings is very transient, isn't it? They're only there for a very short period of time.
Yeah, it can be.
Sometimes. And I hope there's discussions going on with the Welsh Government as well. You know, Wes, you know, you're reporting back to Welsh Government, you know, and this is central to the million speakers. And they need to address some of these issues that in deep rural areas, the accessibility and the equity of provision is non-existent.
Yeah, yes, we do. We have regular meetings with Welsh Government officers about, you know, Welsh medium education, but also about early years education. We meet monthly with Mudiad Maithrin, and we know that they are very keen to ensure Welsh Government are putting more funding towards Welsh medium education as well. So, you know, through our work with them, yes, we are developing that. Whether there's any capital into that, that will remain to be seen. But at the moment, that's where we are concentrating our support for Welsh medium early years education.
Okay, thank you. Shall we move on to further outcomes? My office phone is just ringing. It's putting me off. There we go. It's gone. Shall we move on to outcome
2? Yeah, happy to move on to outcome 2 then. This is about the number of pupils moving into Welsh medium education. So these are those that are 5 years old, just transferring and starting formal education there. Again, it will probably be a case with scrutiny where they feel that there is more information needed possibly in the report that we've circulated to show where they had come from and what they're going and how that has built up over time. We can share that with you. There was an improvement in 2022-23, going up from 20.2% up to 21.1% based on the class data that we had. So there is a slight improvement there. However, when Councillor Aled is talking about trends, the trend in 2021 was actually lower than pre-pandemic levels. There has been an impact, or we feel there's been an impact of accessibility to TRV and Cylchmaithrin during that pandemic time. So we are picking back up. I think it was somewhere near the 24% prior to the pandemic. So we are picking things back up.
Okay, thanks, Eric.
Eric, is it fair to compare the 400 plus and the previous outcome with the 250 or 216 is? Does that cover 1 year or not? Or?
Yes, yeah, and when they're in the Cylchmaithrin, it's 2 years because it's 3 and 4 year olds within the Cylchmaithrin, whereas it's only a single year group then when it's coming into schools. And this, I suppose, this is what I should have said about the 87% now that they're being retained that were accessing Cylchmaithrins in 2021-22. Transferring into schools now, they've retained 87% of those pupils there, and that has gone up from 80%. So there is an improvement in the numbers of retaining there.
But I assume that not all children are going through Welsh reception.
Not all
come through the Cylch and Cylchmaithrin with them.
Yeah, because you'll notice from some of the data there, not all of our settings are registered with Cylchmaithrin. They don't have to be, and still provide Welsh medium education. And that is fine. We're happy to support anyone that's providing Welsh medium education. So, there are some that go through there. What Welsh Government actually provide us with is information through Mydiad Maithrin. So, they track those pupils, and that's where our 87% actually comes from. It's not our information, it's Welsh Government information. Okay. Most of our settings, most of our Mydiad Maithrin, Cylchmaithrin, is closer to 100% of those pupils that are coming through. There is a huge range, though, of information, of numbers that come through. As you can see there, it ranges from 40% in one setting up to 100% in most of them. And a lot of that is down to siblings as well, as to, whether pupils and parents decide to have children going through or accessing Welsh medium early years education, but then when they come to schools, whether they choose to continue with that or not. And that can sometimes be the reason why some settings are lower than others.
Just adding to that, is there a clear pathway for them, or are there some like leaving Cylch and there's no their local school doesn't provide Welsh medium education, and parents sometimes send their children to the nearest local school, whether it's got a Welsh stream in or not.
That's not necessarily what we are seeing with the information we have from parents. See, parents may choose wherever they wish to choose it, but the work that we've done with Mydiad is ensuring that there are opportunities for them to build that up. And I'll go back to the Hey on Why suggestion there of trying to build up from that area now. Is we understand, and so do Mydiad, there's no point having just a TRV, then a Cylchmaithrin, and then no provision for Welsh. So, we're already working with the schools in the Hey on Why area, or Gwynedd cluster then, to try to ensure that there would then be transition into the early primary school phases as well there. But I wouldn't say that's in place yet, but we have already had those discussions with them to see which schools would be able to offer that, and whether we could have that stream going forward in that area, because we understand that we don't want to have just early years education and nowhere else for them to go. Now, for the majority, for most of the pupils across Powys with their Cylch Maithrin or coming through Welsh medium education, they have got an opportunity then to go into or access Welsh medium education.
Thank you. Councillor Bryn, let's try again. I believe Eilís is back with us. So,
okay, found Eilís.
fingers
Wel, gobeithio bod yn gwestiwn eitha quick a galla bod chi wedi ateb o'n barod just ar gyfer y nealltwriaeth i. Y rhif 87% yna, ydy hwnna yn golygu bod bod y nifer sydd yn cyrraedd y dosbarth derbyn yn 87% o'r plant oedd yn cylch flwyddyn cynt, neu ydy 87 y plant sydd yn cylch yn mynd i dosbarth Gymraeg, a wedyn mae yna mwy yn dod o ffrydiau eraill neu'n uniongyrchol sydd i'r ysgol sef bod dwi'n mynd i'r...
Ie, mae hwnna yr ail un.
Yr ail un.
87 yn dod o'r Cylch Maithrin i mewn i...
I reckon then we haven't got translation, apologies. I know.
Sorry.
I'm seeing Eilís, but we don't seem to be picking up anything.
Well,
do you want me? I'll explain.
You give the answer, you know the question.
Yeah. So Councillor Bryn was asking whether the 87.5% was all of the pupils transferring into Welsh medium education or just those from Cylch Maithrin. And I said it is just from Cylch Maithrin, the 87.5%. There would be others transferring in from other settings as well that would be Welsh medium. Or perhaps, because not all children go through early years education, they may be choosing Welsh medium education at the time there. So there would be additional children on top of that to come in.
Diolch.
Diolch fawr. Thank you. Nobody else is indicating. I'm just searching in the document and I can't find it now. It's saying that you've developed a website and also social media channels. Is there any indication or any usage detail in relation to parents using these resources?
I'm going to bring Bethan in at this point because I know she is the one that's been promoting this area here. So,
in terms of the website, that was pre-existing. The website has existed since 2021, I think. I don't have the details on usage for the website. I could possibly speak to IT about getting them. In terms of the social media presence that's been developed since I've arrived in post, obviously social media's changed. The landscape has changed somewhat since its inception, perhaps. And we know that discussing with comms, one thing that we've learned is that actually it's quite difficult to build that follower-ship. So I've been sort of working on getting schools on board to follow so that they can share our messages out as well, because they've already got their audiences quite well developed. So that's where we are at the moment. Is we have started to build a followership and also working with the pre-existing channels to make sure that the messages are being shared correctly and frequently through those channels as well. But no, I don't have much in the way of details. I can tell you how many people follow us, but it isn't huge numbers as yet. I can tell you that.
Diolch, Bethan. Councillor Bryn, followed by Councillor Aled.
Diolch. I can see that under this section that support for latecomers 2.21 trochi immersion centres have been set up. So it's happened on 3 occasions, Dafydd Llwyd, Llanfyllin, Dafydd Llwyd. Can we come up with a new phraseology so that we can distinguish between this kind of trochi experience and the trochi experience which I'm fighting for, which is the transitional year 6 or year 7 model, because it gets flashed up now and again. So I don't know. I with a cynical hat on, I call this random trochi as opposed to systematic trochi. But can we propose an alternative phraseology, because the phraseology is important, and it's why we should be referring to bilingual education and English medium education as opposed to bilingual and Welsh medium and English medium, because it's the outcomes that count, and these phraseologies disguise the outcomes all the time. So I don't know if you want to propose something now, would you be open to suggestions on that?
Diolch. Sorry, just to say, yes, I agree. And it's also quite confusing with early trochi education as well. Trochi methodology is a different thing again. And this is something that I think perhaps the national network of trochi practitioners needs to look at as well. I think that message is starting to get through. So hopefully there'll be a more consistent national approach as well to the phrases used and the terminology used around trochi. Because I totally agree. I take your point.
Yeah.
And we'd be happy to share that with Welsh Government when we meet them next week as well, to see whether we could get some consistency then across the national picture as well. Because again, I'm sure they think that trochi means one thing, but it can mean several things to several people. So if we could actually get them to agree to that as well, that would be helpful to us. And we can then report on each element of trochi as well, isn't it? The immersion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian. Aled.
Thanks, Chair. There's lots of initiatives. Well, right through the report, aren't there? But sometimes it doesn't say whether they're successful. You're going to keep on repeating them, or if it's just a one-year experiment and it's going to be dropped. You know, that consistency of approach Bryn was talking about a few moments ago, really. I get the impression there's lots of thinking, lots of work being done, but not much analysis of what's good and what's repeatable and what can be built upon. I also noticed in 2.3 there's an attempt to look at the possibility of an unsuccessful attempt to look at the possibility of establish a Welsh medium provisional school within in Llanllangen primary school, and that was a little bit of a flight of fantasy. But how many hours were spent on that sort of project? Could that sort of time and money be better spent on other projects that have far more realistic opportunity of delivering? It's great you're entering into all areas across powers, but sometimes you've got to have a little bit of a foundation to build on. Otherwise, you just might lose that all that positivity and impact by spreading yourself too thin.
I know in terms of the Llanfihangel Redaethon, I know that was a request that was put forward to look at all options when that school was put forward for closure. So that was the reasons why there was a potential opportunity to develop Welsh medium provision there. I couldn't tell you how many hours that officers would have put into that, but it would have been looked at from all different angles, and plenty of research that had gone into there. And a lot of that was due to the need for Welsh medium provision within the Prestine cluster. And it was an opportunity to look at whether that would be an opportunity there to do that. Now,
but
you've got to look at
opportunities. Prestine's miles away from there. But anyway,
it was within, that was within a reasonable distance that people thought that could be put forward as an option. And we had to look at, as you know, through consultation, Councillor Aled, we have to look at all options there, and we had to put those forward. So we looked at that, and it was put forward then that it wouldn't be a viable option. Yeah, there's a lot of activity there. Because we're in the first year of the WESP, we have had to do a lot of work in some of these areas. We have to prioritize, obviously, our work as well. Otherwise, we could get too disparate with our approach. And I'm sure when we come on to some more work and questions on trochi, we've learned from that provision as well. You know, we've looked at whether having a version that moves around the county is our best form of providing the most appropriate provision. Our feelings are that we need to now move more towards a more centralized provision that can be more accessible and also available throughout the year, or at least 2 terms throughout the year, and then pupils returning to their host school as well. but we've had to try and start something, which is the first year of what we did with the trochi. This is something that we're now learning from as well. We took on board, you know, some of the ideas from neighbouring counties where they have had trochi going for a lot longer, and try to use that and then making sure that it's more appropriate to Powys and our context as well. Geography is always going to be one of our biggest issues within Powys, is trying to ensure we've got equity across all of our schools and all of our opportunities for our pupils. And that will be, even having a centralized system, that will be one of our biggest challenges, is to ensure that all pupils then have access to trochi provision. So yeah, take on board that lots have happened. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I got Councillor Pete and Georgie. They've disappeared, so we'll move on to Margaret. Just wait.
Sorry,
There we are,
yeah,
Margaret.
sorry, it was me. Yeah, it was just to reinforce what's been said, because it does disappoint me that the first trochi in Newtown that we were, the three that have been cited, was Newtown November 21 was when it started for a short, and it was a short period one. Well, it would have been really helpful within this document, or as an appendix to it, to have the outcomes of that and what had been, you know, we are hearing words, but actually what impact did it have? How are we measuring the success of it to move us forward, to think of refining it to meet future needs or the area? It's very disappointing that that isn't included in this document. I know it's in, you know, there are many occasions in this document where you are making that sort of comment to yourself when you're reading it. I wish I'd got some figures and some more information to inform me the outcome of what's been done, because I appreciate there's an awful lot of very solid planning and work being done, but I must reinforce what everybody else has said about the actual ensuring in the future we target funding on what we've learnt and the outcomes for children are in the process.
Okay, Margaret. Yeah, I think we get that. We're going to move on to. I think it's a well-made point. I really, really do. Councillor Danny.
Thank you, Chair. Just reading down this on page, big page 24, section 2.13, support early years. It says C 1.7. Yet I can't find 1.7. I can only go up to 1.5. Am I not seeing it? Am I missing it?
That's our error. Apologies. Yeah, it should come back into C section 1 rather than C section 1.7, because right. Again, it was about Mudge and Maithrin and the work that's. Oh, 1 minute. That's. Yes, it's referring back to section 1. So apologies. That's my error in doing that. When I translated it, I've come across and not updated that. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bryn, I'll bring Councillor Pete in. Oh no, I'll bring Councillor Bryn in first. You might pick up on what Councillor Bryn is saying as well. Go on, Councillor Bryn.
Okay, diolch. A trio, ydy'r cyfieithu'n gweithio rwan? Helo? Na, dim cyfieithu eto?
No.
Dwi ddim yn credu. Na.
Oh, Pete's getting it. Mae Eilís yn yna, yn siarad. Ydy bobl di dewis Saesneg? Have they picked chosen English? Dwi'n eisiau gwastraffu amser Eilís. Ystym am 2 awr a fi wedi cael ei defnyddio.
Na, Bryn.
Na? Be ydych chi eisiau fi wneud?
Lan i chi. Os ti eisiau gofyn yn Gymraeg. Gallwn ni
Siarad
wneud...
yn
Oce,
Ffrangeg.
ie, na nhw cael yr ateb, oce, gan i weld. Dosbarth derbyn ac yn y blaen ydy'r adeg pryd mae plant yn cychwyn yn ysgolion. Mae hwn yn sôn am trio cael mwy o blant cynradd mewn i addysg Gymraeg ac yn y blaen. I gyflawni hwn, mae rhaid i ni cael ysgolion yn symud ar hyd y spectrwm ieithyddol. Faint o ysgolion sydd yn gwneud hyn, wel, yn enwedig y rai dwy ffrwd i gychwyn, sawl ysgol dwy ffrwd sydd wedi mynegu bwriad un ffordd neu llall i geisio symud ar hyd y spectrwm ieithyddol. Dyna'r cwestiwn.
Bryn, we did get the majority of that translated, so yeah, some success.
Dwi'n credu mae'r gyd yn nhw fod symud ymlaen continuum o'r iaith. Ond mae pob ysgol fod wneud hynny hefyd. Ond rydyn ni'n gweithio gyda rai nhw fel rai sy'n Creinion, so edrych am nôl yn beth sydd yn y cysgau hefyd. Ni yn siarad gyda sawl un nhw i gwneud siŵr bod nhw yn yr cynllun datblygu'r ysgol hefyd, i gwneud yn siŵr bod nhw yn gwthio ymlaen yn beth maen nhw'n wneud i wella Gymraeg o addysg Gymraeg. Bethan, unrhyw beth ti eisiau?
Ie, jyst eisiau dweud rili, yn amlwg, wrth gwrs, wrth i'r papur gwyn symud drwy'r llywodraeth, os yw'r bil yn cael ei dderbyn, mi fydd disgwyl wedyn i bob ysgol, dim ots beth yw ei categori, symud ar hyd y continuum a chynnig mwy drwy gyfrwng y Gymraeg. Ar hyn o bryd, does dim, oni bai am falle Bro Creinion sydd ar hyn o bryd mewn cyfnod ymgynghorol, does dim sydd wedi nodi diddordeb i symud categori iaith ar hyn o bryd, ond bydd pob ysgol yn nodi categori newydd o dan y system categoreiddio newydd nawr ym Mhlasg ar gyfer Plasg y mis Ionawr. Felly dyn ni wedi gweithio gyda pob ysgol i sicrhau bod nhw'n gwybod beth yw ei categori iaith o dan y system categoreiddio newydd, ac wrth gwrs mae gyda nhw ddegawd o fod wedi nodi'r categori newydd i weithio tuag at y categori hwnnw. Yn ôl y papur gwyn.
Iawn, oce. Ie, diolch. Yr rwystredigaeth ydy, mae'n sôn am symud ar hyd y spectrwm, oce, codi safonau mewn lawer o ysgolion, mae hwnna wastad yn mynd i bod yr un fath ydy, nid dall ei gellir gwell ac yn y blaen. Ond yn y pen draw, os da ni eisiau cynhyrchu siaradwyr, mae yr unig ffordd yn wneud ydy cael addysg ddwyieithog i bawb. So, diolch braidd yn siomedig bod na'r un ysgol heblaw Llanfer di mynegu'r bwriad i gwneud hynny. Ac oes yna modd, ydy o hollol lawr i'r ysgolion unigol a llywodraethwyr a'r prif athrawon, neu os yna modd i'r cyngor sir dwi'n rhyw fath o bwysau dylanwad arnyn nhw i wneud hynny?
Wel, mae ysgol Dyffryn Trannon wedi symud.
Wedi gwneud.
Ie, wedi gwneud, ie.
I'r dyfodol dwi'n edrych.
Mae rhaid i'r...
A Rhywbeth, wrth gwrs.
Rhywbeth,
sorry, a Rhywbeth, ie. Mae rhaid i'r hyder dod o'r ysgol hefyd. Gallwn ni roi pwysau ar ysgol, ond os dydyn nhw ddim yn eisiau symud, mae'n mwy anodd i wneud. Ond os ni'n gallu gweithio gyda'r ysgolion i ddweud, wel, gallai ti'n symud fyny, sut gallen ni helpu chi, pa fath o cymorth gallen ni roi mewn i helpu nhw hefyd, bydd hwnna'n mynd llawer well na dweud i rywun, mae rhaid i chi symud. So, mae rhaid i'r hyder dod o'r ysgol hefyd i gweithio gyda ni.
Mae'n y rai ysgolion sydd wedi falle sôn am fwriad i gynyddu faint o Gymraeg maen nhw'n defnyddio fel modd o ddysgu, fel cyfrwng dysgu. Be sy'n ddiddorol i nodi nawr hefyd yw bod y categori yma llawer mwy eang, felly mae llawer mwy yn digwydd o fewn y categori, Ac mae eisiau llawer o newid cyn gallu symud falle at y categori newydd. Mae yna wahaniaeth, hynny yw, mae'r canrannau o ddysgu cyfrwng yn eitha eang yn y categoriau newydd. Felly falle bod tipyn o waith i wneud cyn mynd at y trigger swyddogol yna falle o ofyn am newid categori sydd wrth gwrs yn angen newid swyddogol yn ei categori iaith. Ac o bosib ymgynghoriad i wneud.
Diolch. Dwi'n meddwl beth sy'n dda, os yna rhyw fath o gydnabyddiaeth o'r profiad salach mae plant yn cael y gwrthwynebiad sydd yna i symud ar hyd y categoriau ymhlith rhai carfanau, a bod o'n cael ergyd ar y math o brofiadau mae plant yn cael yn yr ysgolion yma, lle mae di sôn am ysgolion dwy ffrwd, ond ysgolion dwy safon dyn nhw mewn ffordd. Anyway, diolch ar lefel yna.
Okay, I think that's had a good airing. Yeah, point made, Bryn, and we did get the majority. Councillor Pete.
I'm just going to pick up on a couple of things from Bryn and then go back to Trocky. We are actively monitoring Ysgol Crybeth. It has moved formally to dual stream, and we will be looking at the admission numbers over the next couple of years in the hope that there will be a general shift across to the Welsh medium stream, which will reach the point where we can actually start to look at it moving more formally along to just a Welsh medium offering. But we need to be aware that with many of our schools, we have a teacher-related problem as much as a pupil-related one. That if there isn't the ability within the teaching staff to offer a full Welsh medium experience with the number of teachers that we have in some of our schools, we would need to be bringing in additional staff, and that is quite a challenge, and one that we'll be addressing later on in this discussion when we talk around the workforce side of things. So we are in that position. Bethan's also mentioned the new categorisation and the scope for quite significant improvement in the Welsh offering within categories without moving to fully to dual stream or Welsh medium bilingual. And at this stage, with the workforce issues, that is something that we will most definitely be encouraging schools to look at. So it's not perfect, but it's better than where we are if we can start to move that forward. But it is very much dependent on the Welsh language capabilities of the teaching staff that we have, and that is a barrier. I want to go back to the Trocky though, because at the safeguarding conference that was ran in Bilf a few weeks ago, one of the people that ended up purely by chance on the table with the bulk of the education staff happened to be the parent of two of the children that went through the very first Trocky and have carried on within Welsh medium education and are quite successful within that. And they indicated at the time that they would be more than willing to do some promotional work with us about the benefits of Trocky from a pure English medium family background. So that's something we're moving forward, and although I don't have a timescale for it, we need to work out how best to take advantage of that very kind offer so that we can use that to promote Trocky and promote the benefits, because at least one of those children involved, pupils involved, was actually coming in at what you might term the later stage Trocky, the year 5, 6. I think it's quite important to get across that just because a learner hasn't started to learn Welsh in year 1, it is still very possible for them to migrate to a Welsh stream and actually be quite successful going forward into secondary Welsh medium education.
Thank you,
And
Councillor Reid.
Bryn, sorry, I acknowledge as well the offer that you identified up in your area when the two of us were going round 18 months ago. Potentially we can look to revisiting that and having 2 or 3 people bringing forward as part of a more dedicated campaign promoting Trochee.
Councillor Bryn, I'm going to bring you in briefly, but we do need to move on a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. You anticipated my point there. To be honest, I don't know how the promotion is going to be done, but it needs to be more than leaflets. And ideally, if videos could be shared with the schools or the particular schools who have got an offer coming forward, so that they can go out to local parents and be distributed by the schools, so everybody gets a copy. And yeah.
Okay, some of the points we're making are relevant to all the outcomes, but we've got quite a few outcomes to get through. So I think we really need to be concluding this item because we've got quite a hefty agenda after. So should we say another 15 minutes on this one? So if we could fly through outcomes, Eirik.
Yeah, certainly.
Should we do 3 and 4 together now, and then?
Yeah. So the again, this could be an area that people wish to discuss further. It's about the transition into secondary sector and then the available options for GCSEs at this level. It's a difficult one for us to actually gain a real clear understanding of how many pupils are transitioning from year 6 into year 7, because we have a significant number of pupils who transfer out of county for secondary education, especially in the south of the county, who go to Ysgol Gymraeg Ystalyfera. So we don't have any information and we can't track whether those pupils actually continue their Welsh medium education. So it looks like there's a drop off in actual numbers that are there. But that's not necessarily the case. We are trying to set up a data sharing agreement with Neath Port Talbot so that we can actually track those pupils as well to see whether they continue into Welsh medium education or not. But on the face of it, when you look at numbers, it does look like there's a significant drop in numbers. There's also some issue over some of the data collection. It is not being transferred accurately enough from primary into secondary, because if you look on PLAS data, we were looking at 123 pupils accessing early years, accessing Welsh medium education in year 7 last year. We know from our work with secondary schools that it's actually over 170. So there is an issue with some of the way the data is actually transferred onto systems, onto management systems there. So we've got a lot more work to do around how we collect that data, ensuring it is actually accurate, so we can give that information clearly to you and also to Welsh Government. But happy to take questions on that and on GCSEs as well, the offers there.
Okay, nothing coming forward there. Yes, Councillor Bryn.
Ie, dim ond i bwysleisio mor bwysig ydy cael gafel iawn ar pa wersi, ar nifer o wersi mae plant sydd yn trosglwyddo ffrydiau Cymraeg yn yr ysgolion uwchradd yn actually derbyn trwy gyfrwng y Gymraeg. Mae hwnna'n holl bwysig a mae angen neu siŵr bod yr ysgolion yn cadw ati i ddewid o darparu'r addysg ddwyieithog yma.
A rydyn ni'n cytuno hefyd, rydyn ni eisiau gwybod sawl pwynciau sydd yn Gymraeg, a yn unig yn Gymraeg hefyd. Dyn ni ddim yn eisiau cael dwyieithog, neu wersi dwyieithog, ni eisiau nhw cael wersi Gymraeg. So mae rhaid ni cael data wrth yr ysgolion sy'n iawn ac yn gywir.
A sut mae hwnna'n cael ei gasglu felly? Oes da swyddog mewn trafodaeth efo pob ysgol unigol yn hel y data yna?
Dyna sut mae'n dod mewn. Ond gyda'r Bethan nawr yn lle, mae hi sy'n mynd allan i'r ysgolion i casglu hyn yn y dyfod beth oedd yn digwydd, oedd yn dod mewn ato ni a roedd rhywun yn y swyddfa yn casglu hyn. Nawr, mae rhywun fel Bethan yn casglu oddi wrth yr ysgol, so rydyn ni'n gwybod beth sy'n mynd ymlaen.
Ac oes modd efallai danfon arolwg survey allan i'r disgyblion, o at rhieni'r disgyblion, a i weld os di'r data yn dod o'r cyfeiriad arall yn cyd fynd ar data sy'n cael ei darparu o'r pen arall, fel bod sicrhau bod achos os di pawb yn gwybod mae dyna beth sy'n digwydd, mae'n mynd i fod yn fwy cywir, dydy?
Odi. Ie, mae rhaid ni casglu o'r sawl ochr, i gwneud yn siŵr bod e yn gywir. Dyn ni ddim yn eisiau meddwl dim ond am un.
Na, fysa fod dim ond yn gorfod bod yn sampl gan rhieni a plant, achos fysa hwnna'n digon i testio fo fysa.
Ie. Ni'n gwybod gyda'r offer sy'n mynd allan, maen nhw'n dweud, o gallu ti wneud y pwnciau fel hyn, ond pryd wyt ti yn mynd at y swydd, ni'n gwybod hyn. A mae rhaid nhw bod yn deg dyn ni hefyd i gwneud yn siŵr bod ni yn casglu popeth yn gywir. Mi'n gwybod mae Chris James yn gweithio ar hyn i gwneud yn siŵr bod ni'n cael y wybodaeth yn gywir oddi wrth yr ysgolion ac o'r plant hefyd.
Diolch.
Okay, Georgie, welcome.
Thank you. Just really to follow up from Irik's point there around the work that Chris James, our 14 plus lead, is currently doing. He is currently carrying out a curriculum mapping exercise at Key Stage 4 to look at the offer, both vocational and academic, but also language of delivery, really to address the points there that Councillor Bryn's made, to make sure that we're aware of the provision and the various elements of language delivery across the piece and how we ensure that equity. Also, we have got that accurate picture now post-16 as well, because we've improved the data capture processes regarding course delivery and numbers on courses and language of delivery. So just really to give those assurances that we are reviewing that and looking at that as a piece of work, and Chris is just finalising that Key Stage 4 curriculum mapping this term.
Thanks, Georgie. It sounded like you were presenting from a cave, but we did get the majority of it. Anyway, we did. Or you'd been sucking on a helium balloon. I'm not quite sure. Right, Irig, if you'd like to continue, if we could try and.
I'll go quick. I noticed Sarah's point in the chat there about recruitment to Welsh medium. Yeah, that's we completely agree, which is why that's in outcome 7. About how we can help and support the training of staff to deliver Welsh medium courses. It is obviously a key element to this as well in the offer that they can have going forward, is having and attracting Welsh medium teachers into Powys so that we can deliver a strong curriculum and good options for those going forward as well. The outcome 5 is very much about the Siarter Iaith and how we engage with our learners. Now, this is a stronger element in Powys. We have all of our primary schools involved in Siarter Iaith. Our secondary schools are becoming more involved in it, and they are actually achieving well in terms of what we're doing there. So unless anyone else got questions about that, I'm happy to move on to outcome 6, which is ALN. Again, ALN is an area we find difficult, not only in providing the support, is in actually having the officers able to support this as well. So we have to look for, alternative options to try to support that. We use a lot of our school-to-school support in this way. We have a few ALNCOs that are through the medium of Welsh who, again, we discuss a lot with, and we try to get support through them as well. But we are very aware that, it is an area that we struggle with, in English medium, let alone through Welsh medium as well. So it's an area that we need to improve and want to improve on. We're looking to recruit. And when we do look to recruit, we actually look to ensure that we have Welsh medium is one of those aspects we're looking for with our staff as well. And then finally, then is outcome 7, which is about the number of teachers and how we support our teachers to provide Welsh medium education. Again, the sabbatical scheme is on offer. The funding that we receive from that, or funding schools receive from Welsh Government, we don't actually receive it, doesn't quite cover the costs of that. So there is a slight cost to schools as well. But we are picking up on the numbers there. We are encouraging all our schools to engage in this so that we can actually improve the Welsh learning skills of our teaching staff as well. Sorry to go through those last 3 quickly, but if there's anything that people
it's absolutely fine. And members really don't want to rush anything. And if we do skip over something today, I'm happy to take further points by email as well. Members, any other questions in relation to those outcomes? No. If we could just look at, I'd be happy if we were just to look at the Welsh Government responses and any comment in relation to advice and outcomes on that one. It's got comments on all outcomes. Has anybody got any comments on that? It looks pretty straightforward, doesn't it? And in some respects is similar to the comments which we've been making today.
Yeah, I was just, as I said in the beginning, it would be good to see how's the response to them in the fullness of time, so we can follow it through.
I completely accept, Councillor Aled, that and Margaret's comments about data. You know, we will bring that back in the next time that we meet with you and ensure that we show that progress through as well. Because, you know, I'm very aware that the report was written for Welsh Government, not for this audience. We'll make sure that next time we have a report that's fit for this audience, so that you can see that through as well.
Councillor Bryn?
Just the ategu be mae Margaret wedi dweud, really, very suddenly. Mae a lot o'r bwch yn cynnwys reviews a consultations ac yn y blaen, ond fysa ambell i focs colofn arall ar gyfer carreg milltir sydd mynd i fod yn barhaol i cenedlaethau'r dyfodol sydd yn sefyll yna, enghraifft os ydy ysgol wedi newid categori, bod hwnna'n bocs, achos dwi'n gwybod be chwyth o waith ydy'r reviews ar ymgynghoriadau yma. Dyna lle mae lot o'r waith, ond y canlyniadau dyn ni eisiau gweld faint o canlyniadau sy'n deillio o'r gwaith yma. Diolch.
Yeah.
I think Bryn has summarised it up there. Margaret spoke very eloquently where we are, results, measures, outcomes. And Myrig, you've been very honest to say, well, you know, we're not the correct audience for this report. So I think you understand what we're reaching out for.
I can completely understand it, you know, there. And, you know, we'll make sure that when we do come next time to give that, we will bring a report that's got more detail in there. As you can see, even in some of the detail we gave to Welsh Government, we don't hold some of that information at the moment. We have got to have that information if we're going to be able to, you know, confidently say how we're moving forward with it as well.
Yeah, and again, I'm responding to our pre-meet as well. You know, it's clear that there's an awful lot of work going on, and there's a lot of desire and a lot of effort. So we recognise that. We just need the evidence, don't we?
Certainly.
So has anybody got any further comment to make in relation to this? I know I'm rushing it a little bit now, but please, members, I know IRIG will be very accommodating. If there's further information we need before we making some recommendations, perhaps we'll open it up to email as well, because it's such an important subject and I don't want to curtail debate, but I am looking at our agenda and I'm thinking, have we got enough hours in the day? So thank you both, Eirik and Bethan, for joining us. And on that, we're going to move on to item 7. Members, I'm keen to carry on, but if you do want a comfort break, please tell me. But I'm quite keen to carry on. So if nobody shouts me down, I'm going to go to item 7, our strategic risk register. We did express a few points in our pre-meet, which I know has gone to service. So maybe that will curtail a little bit of our debate today. Who's going to lead on this? Councillor Pete, if you wish to say anything before we move on, or
I will just introduce it. There are 2 points on the risk register that relate to education. Both of them relate to matters around the school building and the school's estate rather than the education. And whilst officers that are here will answer as best we can, it is not my portfolio, it's Councillor Jake's portfolio, and he's not available today. Otherwise, I would have suggested that he join us. I'm just trying to think. I'm seeing Bets on the call, so I'm going to pass to Bets to introduce these 2 items more fully. Bets deals, for those that are not aware of her before, Bets deals with taking the lead responsibility for managing the corporate risk register.
Thank you, Bets. Do we wish any comment, or do you want to go straight to questions? Because, you know, as Councillor Pete said, there's 2 items. Do we want to develop that? Or Bets, do you wish to say anything?
I'm happy doing a presentation, but if time is limited, I'm happy going straight to questions. Probably, you know, obviously we'll see what the questions are, but the majority of questions, if they're specifically service related, then hopefully our education colleagues will be able to answer in the absence of our property colleagues. But yeah, I'm happy to present, or I'm happy to go straight to questions.
Is your presentation in relation to the risk register, or in relation to the 2 risks that exist on the register?
No, it was just in relation to the complete risk register.
Right. Do we want to an update on our councillors? Are you comfortable with the risk register, or should we just go straight to questions?
Straight to questions.
Straight to questions? Yep. No, go on, and I'll let you lead away.
I didn't say I had a question.
I know, but I know you. I know you.
I know the one that falls within the buildings, school stock deteriorating, etc. And sort of Councillor Roberts sort of passed it off, saying it's somebody else's area, but it's so closely related to transformation. It obviously, you know, he's got a big responsibility in this area, you know, around the issues of the state of the buildings, and the fact that the transformation agenda from the capital side has been pushed back quite significantly. There's a school in my area now, which was a receiving school, potential receiving school, with 500,000 backlog in maintenance. If we're further down the track on the transformation, that probably may not have been an issue, but it's just comments on that, really.
Councillor Pete.
Thanks, Councillor. As has been pointed out at scrutiny meetings in the past, the position on the schools within the Llanbathin catchment has actually been determined by the Welsh Government cycle. We've been waiting for Band C to come forward, now known as Sustainable Communities for Learning, and the delays as a result of the collapse of Dornus have meant that we've been unable to bring forward new projects during his time as finance portfolio holder and mine within the education side until the announcement of that new tranche of money. That has obviously delayed things, as has the delay in bringing forward the Llanbathin catchment changes when Bro-Cynllaeth and Llangedwin proposals weren't moved forward at the end of his tenure. Officers will now be preparing the submissions to go forward as the Powys bid into that programme, and will be moving them forward in a timely manner. in respect to the wider schools estate, yes, they do have an oversight. My comments were, if you were looking at very detailed comments in relation to rate of fire inspections, which have largely been completed, the exact status of safeguarding works on individual schools in relation to fencing, which has been a major investment area over the past 18 months, to the extent that that has had to take money out of the schools' maintenance, the central maintenance major improvements budget, so I always forget the name of it, that has had to take money out of the major improvements budget at the cost of undertaking other work to the school's fabric, because insecure sites have been identified consistently within recent SDIM reports, not just in this county, but elsewhere. So we've had to prioritise that work in order to make sure that the safeguarding issue is not highlighted in the schools in which there is an SDIM inspection due. I'd highlight the work that we've undertaken on Welshpool High School over the past 6 months, with more scheduled in the February half term, as being one example where there has been very significant financial investment in ensuring that the perimeters are fully secured. So there is a lot of work ongoing that I can talk about, but not in the detail. Although, Sarah, I know you've done a lot on the safeguarding. Perhaps you could expand on the comments I just made there a little bit in terms of the scope of the work that we've been doing to secure perimeters in our schools.
Let's bring Ali back in there first, please.
There was a saving taken by the cabinet because just over £20 million of capital money had not been spent in this financial year, and clearly there's a revenue saving by pushing back that capital spend. Was none of that related to school, or that's over £20 million of capital spend that was due to be spent in this year?
I'll defer to Councillor David, who's better placed on that.
Councillor Pete, Councillor David's coming in to assist.
Can I just make some general observations with regard to capital spend, both now and going forward? I've made this statement previously as a result of a meeting we had with the WLGA, the chief executive, myself, and the 151 officer. And during a briefing on the current Wales fiscal analysis, it's blatantly clear that there's going to be a major squeeze on capital with regards to Welsh Government for the foreseeable future. And that's because of the situation they're finding themselves in financially. Now, what we've made perfectly clear that if we're going to maintain a viable capital programme going forward, and this isn't simply for education, this is for the whole authority, then with the pressures we're under, then the only way we're going to fund that programme is through short-term borrowing and capital receipts. So that's the position we're in. So yes, we want to make progress, but at the same time, we have to be extremely cautious because of the pressures we might be making on our revenue budget, and that in turn will deter us with regard to our delivery of other services. So that's the capital position. It's incredibly fragile at the moment. For the foreseeable future, it's going to be fragile again, not in the least because of the high interest rates and the fact that inflation is still pretty well high at 4.6%. I know the forecasts are that's going to drop, but we're not going to see major benefits of that in the near future because the hit the construction industry is already taken with regard to the high inflation rates that existed 6 months ago is still there. But that's just a warning going forward. And I think it's something that the council as a whole need to bear in mind when they're going to be passing resolutions as they did at last Thursday's full council meeting, which unfortunately I couldn't attend because I was at the hospital. But that in turn did actually deny us potentially £5 million of capital receipts this year, and that in turn would have saved us £300,000 on our revenue budget. What's done is done, and I don't want to revisit that because that's the decision of the council, and I'll respect that. But it's just something to bear in mind going forward, that it's absolutely essential that we have the ability to raise capital receipts and that we look for short-term borrowing options because of the high interest rates. Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor David. Really appreciate that contribution.
I'm sorry, Chair. My point hasn't been answered around the £20 million but unspent capital in this financial year.
Yes, that hasn't been spent, and that's contributed savings against the revenue budget. Now, obviously, if you want to spend that, then you're going to add about £1.2 million to the pressures on the revenue budget this year going into next year. So if you're suggesting that we spend that now and under these extremely difficult financial circumstances, then just bear in mind that what you're proposing is additional £1 to £1.2 million pressure on next year's budget.
It's budgeted for, and there's a cost of not doing it as well. What is the cost of not doing that?
I haven't got the figure for the cost of not doing it. I'm more concerned.
Well, it's about service delivery, isn't it?
Yes, I'm more concerned about protecting services going forward.
Well, that's exactly my point.
We've got the ability to deliver services, because to be quite frank, with the financial challenges that are facing us, if we act irresponsibly, we're not going to be able to deliver any services of any value in the future. So it's down to simple financial responsibility and financial planning.
Okay.
So just keep on patching, is it?
No, nobody's patching. Protecting for the future, I think, might be more appropriate, Councillor Alid.
Patching schools.
Protecting services for the future. At least we'll have schools, and we'll be able to man those schools and offer our children an education. If we run out of money, we won't be able to do that. It's my responsibility to ensure that we've got a sound financial base to operate from.
Okay, I'm going to bring us back to the agenda. We're talking about risk and a risk to the authority, and everybody, Councillor Ali, Councillor David, and Councillor Pete, acknowledging this risk. Bets, I'm going to ask you now. Do you think that we're acknowledging this risk in the register in the correct manner? Because that's our role here as scrutiny members today. Should we be escalating this risk? Because it's clear it's a very, very, I was going to say risky risk. It's a very important risk, and it appears that there's no immediate answer to solve it. Do you think we should the risk rating we have on these two education matters is in the correct? And I'm asking you as scrutiny members as well to judge that as well. Is the risk being totally explored?
First of all, I'd say, I mean, this is the strategic risk register, so this is the register that goes to Cabinet, so there is nowhere further to escalate. It's already at the top level, but it is completely within your gift as this scrutiny committee to ask for more information if you want that assurance that the risk is being managed successfully. So that's well within your gift of the committee.
Okay, bear that in mind, members. Councillor Lucy.
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking at the Quarter 4 review summary, and just really wanting to be confident that the risks to individual schools are being adequately addressed, so that, for instance, we're not going to suddenly find a lot of schools where their boilers aren't working and they have to close down for periods of time, or building, structural collapse and major works that are going to put back pupils' education. And it's not really clear from the risk register, but it may be that it will become clearer with the associated documentation.
Councillor Pete has been waiting, Georgie, so I'm going to go to Councillor Pete first. I think we've had our political debate, Councillor Pete, so please don't add to that.
Oh, no, I'm not looking at the politics on this now. I can give you some limited reassurance. Georgie may be able to give you more. I just had a report back from officers that in respect of RAC, almost all of our surveys are now complete, and with the exception of a couple of small roof spaces that still need to be checked, which are of the lowest priority, we haven't found any RAC within the school's estate. In respect of the confidence in the structural integrity, officers have been tasked with undertaking full condition surveys of the entire estate, linked in with Welsh Government works on energy. That is a work that's in progress, and that will give us a detailed assessment not just of the state of the schools, but of the backlog maintenance, because the figures we're working from at the moment are a formula based rather than a physical inspection base. That will fill the gap that has been caused in the routine review of condition surveys that came about during COVID, where access to the schools was not possible. So routine updates of those was not happening for a number of years. So that they are two bits of assurance. In respect to boilers, I think it's worth using this opportunity to again notify you of an update in respect of Welshpool, where specific work has been identified in the boiler area, relating not just to the boilers, but also to the removal of asbestos. And that is being undertaken over the summer Christmas recess by specialist contractors while there are no pupils or teachers on the site. So we are monitoring issues as and when they arise, but we are not aware of anything that is happening nationally other than RAC, which I mentioned earlier, where there is an intrinsic risk to our schools estate by dint of how they might have been built or when they might have been built. Obviously, that is being reviewed constantly whenever any of our property team are on site.
Councillor Pete, I understand there's quite a few with their hands up now, but Councillor Pete, it's a certain amount of money committed to Cook Capital Works last year. It was, I think, 2.2 million from Welsh Government and also a 500k concession in the budget. Well underspent at this stage and almost 12 months on. Why haven't we committed to more projects along them line with the school repairs in such a bad state?
Are Georgie or Sarah able to take that one for me? Because that is an area that Jake gets the conversations feeding through to.
On my understanding, it was 2.8 million and 700,000 has been spent.
I'd need to ask officers for more detailed information on that.
Georgie.
What I'd say in regard to it is that Sarah's got the detail and knows about that. I would just like to say that we are commissioning that work in line with need around those various elements. So, Sarah, would you like to just talk about any of the specific detail there to assure Scrutiny that we're managing it? Before Sarah does that, can I just reiterate and reassure that we have now established regular meetings between ourselves and property to ensure that we are on top of any of those needs, those essential urgent needs, and prioritising that support. That's being conveyed to head teachers as well, that they know that we are constantly updating our priority list around these emergency repairs. So just to reassure Scrutiny that we have that list and it's an ongoing live list that we are constantly working on with our property partners. Sarah, can I pass to you?
Yes, certainly, Georgie. In terms of the 2.2 million, although the actual spend that has been processed through the system, which is probably due to the completion of works, may be showing as underspent, the full amount is allocated across many different works. I was having a quick look earlier, and there are at least 33 schools which are benefiting from capital works in respect of let me just scroll across, apologies. So in respect of low carbon technology works, and there are some of those which are further supported by additional Welsh Government funding. So I did just want to give that assurance that there is a full programme of works being undertaken across our schools estate in respect of that funding. And just coming back to the earlier point about the major improvements, where there are planned works, those are planned in priority based on the urgency, and again with the repair and maintenance works, again those are planned although reactively due on as a result of what is presenting based on the urgency. But as Georgie highlights, there is a really close working relationship with property, and I would say often more than daily discussions around individual schools works to make sure they are progressing as needed.
Thanks, Sarah. Aled, please.
Thanks, Sarah. It's good to hear that. We saw some press release recently about PV units on schools saving I can't remember the figures exactly, but it would be really good if could you share that program of work with the scrutiny committee of all those individual schemes, so we can just by email, so we got some idea of scale, etc. And as Beth suggested, looking at that risk, clearly the risk talks about the potential of school closure or partial school closures. Can you give us a list of the schools are most likely to close, possibly the top 10 that have got the most significant problem? Thank you.
Any response to that? I guess Sarah, sorry.
In terms of the programme, I'm sure that would be absolutely fine. I would just check with colleagues in property before circulating that, because it's not my document. In terms of the list of schools likely to close, I think we work hard to ensure that schools aren't in that position. So we wouldn't actually have a list. We need to make sure that our schools are safe and warm for our learners, and respond immediately to any concerns where it is possible that a school may have to close temporarily. Okay.
But the residual risk is still in pink at 16.
That is in respect of the value of the backlog maintenance and the amount of works that in terms of assets. And actually there was conversations the other day that one of the two risks needs to be reviewed, because there have been significant works in terms of compliance. So there is due a conversation about whether that one is potentially a little bit too high at the moment.
Okay, can you inform the committee as soon as it's downgraded?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pete.
One of the other reasons the residual risk remains high is that we've got to do the condition survey work. So there is an element of uncertainty reflected in the residual risk that will be mitigated by having the condition surveys completed. This is very much the building consequence of COVID, in that we haven't been able to spend the time on school sites over a number of years, so we're now having to catch up that work. Normally looking back historically, pre-COVID, there would have been between 5 and 10 condition surveys done on schools most years, so that there is a rolling programme of knowing what the condition of schools are. We're having to catch that up. And that is in no way a reflection on the previous administration. That is almost exclusively a COVID consequence.
Okay, just to clarify then, the surveys that were undertaken, which led to the delay of the sharing out of the 500,000 budget concession grant last year, wasn't that a full condition surveys of all schools?
The delays in that were complicated by the announcement of additional work being done by Welsh Government, and the need to align that. And that work is still ongoing as a result of discussions with Welsh Government, so that we ensure that money, that we are not duplicating expenditure of public money where it is exceptionally tight. And there's now a programme of work scheduled to go forward on that.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the point I was making. The point I was making was I was led to believe, and I thought Scrutiny had cited a document that condition surveys had been completed. Okay, we'll get some clarity on that. I'm sorry if I've confused you there, Councillor B. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. It's probably me being rusty on that, but I'll certainly revisit some previous minutes. We've touched on transformation, and the one thing that really strikes out at me is and adds to our risk is the development of the wellbeing hub in Newtown, which is becoming a very important part of the transformation of the Newtown schooling. But again, this certainly adds to the risk out there, really, because again, we still don't know any outcomes from Welsh Government, or are we any further forward with that, or knowing will that develop?
I'll respond. The scrutiny template, as it were, on the strategic outline case is now out with people and due to come back to Welsh Government in the coming weeks. And that will be largely determining factor in whether the strategic outline case is approved and moved forward, obviously aligned with the capital spend challenges. And that hopefully will give us a degree of clarity early in the new year as to how that is moving forward. In respect of the new build at Ysgol Calon-y-Dderwin, even if that strategic outline case does not progress, that will not have an impact on the financial funding for the Calon-y-Dderwin site. So the transformation and new build on the school will not be detrimentally affected by the strategic outline case on the wider site not moving forward. It would just open up different opportunities on that site for transformation.
Okay. Members, any other comments on the strategic risk register? Not really sure what our outcomes here are. Has anybody got any suggestions how we should be responding to this? Or are we content that the risk that sits is where it should sit? And that's our duty as a scrutiny committee, really? Or that there is a comprehensive understanding of that risk? Are we content with that?
Chad, I don't, the fact that quadruple P 0031 is still pink, I really high level concerns about that. You know, you're talking about potential partial or full school closures, and I'm none the wiser whether it's been fully addressed. On the one side, capital is being squeezed, not spending anything. On the other side, we having the argument of everything's been done to moderate that risk. So I do struggle with that. It would be good. I've asked for a couple of bits of more information, but it would be good to see condition surveys, especially when there are possible red items that are crucial for those particular schools, to have an understanding of what true understanding of the level of risk that is contained there. Thank you.
Scrutiny members, is that an adequate summary?
Yeah.
Is it a balanced summary? Judging on your silence, we'll move on then and minute accordingly. Item 8 on your agenda is Estin reports update. We're expecting a verbal update here. Is that you, Georgie?
No, it's going to be Betty and Ira, Chair.
Okay. We really are having a problem hearing you, Georgie. I'm really not sure what it is. It really like a I don't know how to best describe it, so I'm not really sure. So yeah. So
I'll try my headset. I'll try my headset, Charles, if that helps.
Item 8 on your agenda, Estin reports update. Really didn't grasp who was giving us that update.
Chair, it's me.
Okay,
I'm going to start. I will start with the primaries and special schools, and then Cressy will come in then on the secondary.
Thank you.
So what we thought was give an update now of the work that's taken place in terms of inspections over the last 2 years. As you're aware, inspections were suspended during the time of the pandemic and then didn't restart then until 2022. So in the academic year 2020-2021, 9 primary schools were inspected. Of those, 3 actually were asked to provide case studies. Now, there's no judgments in Wales anymore on terms of the areas where schools are improving, but if you are asked to produce a case study, it is seen as exceptional practice within their schools. So to have 3 of our schools within the first year actually being asked to produce case studies was quite an achievement there. Out of the 9 schools inspected, 1 school, Ysgol Llandinam, were actually placed in Estyn review. Now that's not a statutory follow-up category. It is just the one above a statutory category there. However, it's pleasing to see that Ysgol Llandinam were removed from Estyn review in July 2023, having made strong progress in addressing all of their recommendations. Moving on to then the last academic year, 2022-23, we had 8 inspections in our primary schools, 2 of which were asked to produce case studies. That was Rhaeadr Primary School and Ysgol Pont Robert. We had 2 schools in Estyn review. One is Forden Primary School, the other is Radnor Valley. And we actually have a meeting with Estyn on Friday to review the progress that Forden Primary School have made in addressing theirs. So I don't wish to preempt anything, but we are hoping for a positive outcome. And then finally, Leighton Primary School were placed in need of significant improvement in June 2023. That's the only primary school that is in a formal category of follow-up with Estyn. And we are working very closely with the school there to ensure that their post-inspection action plan is in place and being acted upon robustly. In terms of, sorry.
Go on, Eric.
In terms of special schools, there have been no co-inspections in our special schools since the pandemic. However, Ysgol Cydawain were placed in Estyn review prior to the pandemic in January 2020. They have now been removed from that category in October 2023. So none of our special schools are in any form of follow-up with Estyn. Happy now to pass over to Cressy to give you an update on the secondary schools.
Can we stop there?
Yeah, sorry.
We'll just open up for questions on the primary sector. Margaret's got her hand up, so we'll go to Margaret first.
Yeah, just wanted to say something in relation to Forden, because it's a school I know reasonably well and it's one under the diocese. So I am just saying that the diocese have and the school have submitted their concerns related to the inspection to Estyn. Estyn have had them, and Estyn have recognised the issues that they have raised within their concerns, and hopefully when you IRIG has a meeting, or whoever's meeting with Estyn, that will form part of that, will be noted, because there were major concerns with the inspection from the school's perspective.
Yeah, any comment there, IRIG?
No, we'll speak to Estyn when we meet them on Friday. You know, we've been working with Forden now and the school improvement advisors. We're with Forden now since September 22. We are content with the progress that they are making there. Again, I don't want to prejudge it because it will be Estyn's decision at the end of the day whether they are removed from Estyn review. But you know, we hope that there will be a positive outcome from that.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments or questions on the primary sector? Nope. Okay, Cressy, we'll move on to the secondary sector.
Yeah, everyone. So we've had 2 core inspections in the secondary and all age sector since the pandemic. Ysgol Calan Cymru was inspected in November 2022 and was placed in Estyn review. A Newtown High School has recently had their inspection in October. The report is due out next week, so we won't have any further information until Monday on Newtown High School. We have then also had 2 monitoring visits. Brecon High School were in significant improvement. They received a monitoring visit in November 2022, and as a result of that, they were placed into special measures. Similarly, Gwynyfed High School received a monitoring visit in October 2022 and were also placed into special measures. Are there any questions about secondaries?
There we go. Any questions surrounding the secondary for Cressy, please? Okay, Lucy, Councillor Lucy.
Thank you, Chair. So I would just like to ask then what work is being done with those schools that have now been placed in special measures to try and make sure that they get themselves out of special measures.
Yes, absolutely. So both the schools have a post-inspection action plan in place. They have each received a what they call a PIAP visit from Estin, where we work together to agree that post-inspection action plan. They also received half-termly multi-agency meetings. That involves a whole plethora of people from the local authority, school improvement advisors, from Estin, working together with the school to identify what support the school needs to make sure that they are moving forward. And on that post-inspection action plan, the local authority support is outlined clearly. They are getting support from their school improvement advisors, for example, from the secondary improvement team and wider house officers as well.
Thank you. Can I just ask as well, are there any particular themes that are coming up from the inspections of areas that are perhaps causing concern across the county?
So from the secondary sector, we obviously have 3 schools with recommendations from Estin, and we'll know about Newtown next week. We are seeing common recommendations around improving teaching, improving provision, the development of literacy and numeracy skills, and in improving leadership and self-evaluation processes.
In terms of primary, sorry, I just come in there straight after Cressy. Last year, there were 27 recommendations in primary schools in Powys. 13 of those were all associated with teaching. So we've made sure that when we're going in doing our autumn term review in each of the schools, we have focused on that as an area to question our schools on and to challenge them to see whether they do actually understand what are the strengths of their teaching and where they need to improve, and then putting in support then into our schools to try to address those as well. But it was a very much a common theme coming across our schools, our primary schools last year in inspections.
That's quite concerning, really, with something so basic.
Yes, elements of that. So it could be about challenge, Councillor Lucy. It could be about questioning. So, that's what we've tried to say now is going into schools there, are you doing that? So yeah, it's not teaching per se, it is about elements of that. But it's how we then challenging our pupils to get to the higher ends of what they can do.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Eric. Aled, please.
Yeah, it's partly related to, and I'm sorry, Cressy, I can't always quite hear what you're saying sometimes. You've got the same problem as Georgie. There's a whole raft of inspections in the secondary sector in the spring term coming through now, isn't there? I think, unless that's changed.
Yes.
And clearly, I assume that the county are working closely with the schools to try and make sure they're up to speed. Is that going well, or do you have areas of concern? And do you have enough capacity to give as much support to those schools as you would like? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, so we prioritised support for the schools facing inspection in our school improvement work, and we are also, as Irig already mentioned, having a very strong focus on improving teaching and learning. We do have some more information, more specific information coming up a little bit later on today. So I can give a bit more information now, or we can wait until that point if you prefer.
Okay, thanks, Cressy. Councillor Bryn.
Muted, Bryn.
Iawn,
Sorry.
drwy gynnu. Iawn, gan bod gymaint o bwyslais yn cael ei roi ar addysgu a dysgu yn yr arolygiadau yma, faint o sylw ydy'r arolygwyr yn rhoi i'r 4 diben sydd yn cael ei gwthio trwy'r ysgolion uwchradd erbyn hyn? Ydyn nhw'n rhoi llawer o bwyslais arnyn nhw, neu ydyn nhw jyst eisiau gweld safonau yn y dysgu?
Ydych chi'n gofyn yn ysgolion uwchradd, ie? Sorry.
Ysgolion uwchradd, ie.
Ie, iawn, okay, sorry.
There's a question, Bryn, you're referring your question to secondary schools?
Yeah. Now that the 4 purposes are being sort of pushed through the secondary school system, how much emphasis are the inspectors putting on understanding of those? And it seems teaching and learning is seems to be coming out as a need area for improvement.
My apologies. I think you were really quiet then, but I think you're asking how much emphasis are inspectors putting on the development of the 4 core purposes in the new curriculum for Wales. Okay, yeah. So inspectors focus absolutely on progress of learners, progress they're making in their learning, which encompasses all of those elements of curriculum for Wales, such as the 4 core purposes, the principles of progression, and so on. So all of that is taken into account for them to then make their judgments about whether teaching is having a strong enough impact on pupil progress and learning.
Okay. Yeah, but all right. There isn't a huge. They don't list all the teachers who understand it and all those who don't, and that sort of it's. Are they as concerned as the Welsh Government are about getting these 4 purposes through embedded into the secondary education system?
So they definitely look at 4 purposes. It's mentioned specifically in their in their what they inspect documents around about the ways in which pupils progress. But the way that Estin then look at things is they don't start with looking at the teaching. They start with looking at the learning, but therefore, how learners are making progress, and then they can make their judgments on how teaching is impacting that, rather than starting with the teaching, which is perhaps what happened in the previous frameworks and so on.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Has that exhausted all questions in relation to the Estin update? Okay, thanks once again, Eirig, and also Cressy on this one. Thanks for the update, very useful. Gives us a snapshot where we are, and I think it was important that it was on our agenda today. Item 10 on our agenda is schools causing concern, or item 11 is schools causing concern. Members, we're advised to go to a confidential session on this one. Do you wish a short break, or should we just press on and conclude our meeting? Yeah, okay. Members, I'm looking for somebody to propose that we go into confidential session. I'll take Lucy as a seconder. We're all in favour. So it's agreed that we'll go into confidential session. So we'll just go have an opportunity just to make sure that we are confidential. And then we'll take this agenda item. When Kath gives us the head that we're confidential, we'll press on with